What Kenneth didn't tell you is that I abused him and got him to join the Boy Scout board, which he thankfully did, and I greatly appreciate it. I serve on a couple nonprofit boards, and I think that really relates to my upbringing, and I think that's where I'll start the process tonight. So I was born in Miami. I have a brother 8 years older than me, a sister 6 years older than me. Clearly I was not planned. And not only was I not planned, but it really wasn't to my mother's benefit because she already had a heart condition. So when I was 5, she died of a heart attack. And at that point, two aunts actually flew down to Miami and said that my father was taking the 3 of us to South Jersey with millions of chickens, a little town called Vineland. I want you to assume Miami, Florida, and Vineland, New Jersey have nothing in common. My aunt was really impressed with her decision to move us up there. And then we moved to Vineland, New Jersey, and because they weren't expecting 4 new members of the family, they got a large apartment where they could find one, which was directly above the bowling alley, on the wrong side of the tracks. And of course, you know, there's always liquor near a bowling alley, so it was really made for young kids. And that's where I started, in South Jersey. When the farmers fertilized, that's what the whole town smelled like. Millions and millions of chickens. I know years later I did a talk at the Gainesville Rotary, and someone said, you know, this is the guy from Atlanta. And I went up to the former head of the Georgia Poultry Association, Abbott Massey, and said, Abbott, help me. Tell them what Vineland, New Jersey is. He said, guys, be nice to them. They have more chickens than Gainesville. So I'm familiar. I worked in a chicken plant one summer. I know what it's like to live in a rural area. I also know, accordingly, the value of education. So I went to D.C., coming from a town full of chickens, corn, tomatoes, lettuce. I decided to study international relations. And I got a BA and MA, was halfway to the PhD before I decided I wanted to go to law school. Offered a free ride in American, but I didn't want 3 degrees at the same school. Georgetown Georgetown accepted me, but told me it was my dime. And Emory said, you pay maybe about 15%. So I went to Emory and got a great education. Emory does a great job with their students. And their new dean, Dean Shapiro, is a fantastic guy, really good guy leading Emory Law School. My aunt and uncle owned a Jewish bakery. So I've had this stomach for a long time. Because every day I would walk home from elementary school and get a crumb cake and get milk. And I was a happy camper. They would tell me to do my homework in an office, and then my aunt would take me home at that point, and then do the rest of the homework, etc. I was taught a lot at that point. They were middle class in the real sense of middle class, not what people call themselves now, middle class. My uncle was active, along with my dad, in an organization called the Jewish War Vets. And my aunt was very active in a Jewish organization called the Hadassah. And Hadassah did a lot for folks that did not have. So before it was fashionable to do drives for winter coats, for instance, or for clothing, they would do that. My aunt and uncle gave away the day-old bread and the day-old bakeries. Not that they couldn't use the money, but they knew other people needed it more. And we learn about giving back. We learn about the values that are important to us through our families. You're just not born it. You got to watch it. You see whether it's important. So clearly, I grew up in a background where that was very, very important. Whether you had or didn't have, you needed to give. So I came to Emory. The summer of my last year, I met my wife. She just graduated Duke Law School, got a job at Georgia Power. And a couple years later, we got married. She told me I was moving to East Cobb because that's where the good schools were. Having said that, my kids all went to the Atlanta International School, so we lived where the good schools are, but we wrote a big check, you know, at that point. So that means I could sell my house within a week whenever I want, but I never took advantage of the public school system. But that was my choice, my wife's choice, so that's fine. And I got active in a group called Safe Path, which is a child abuse center. So they deal with, when there's a call to the police of alleged child abuse, child neglect, child molestation, determine whether there's credible evidence of abuse. So it may not take you far to figure out why I was interested in SAPAP. I was not personally abused, but just with my family background. My aunt and uncle, by the way, my uncle died 2 years later in the chicken plant in a job injury. So it was an interesting upbringing at that point. And then I got more active in the community. If you move into a house and if you're a banker, a lawyer, a CPA, a small business owner, and you foolishly show up to a homeowners meeting, they call you board member. So that led to me getting active in a group called the East Cobb Civic Association. I guess that represented, 20,000 homes or so at some point. And then in 1998, the homeowners community and the business community suggested I run for office. My wife and I had never talked about running for office. Unbelievably, she said yes. And that started the whole process to now be, I guess, in my 17th year of public service. At first, I got to practice law. And, one of the neat things is when you're elected, most judges will give you a special setting, which means you have a date certain to show up to the courtroom, which is really helpful if you do trial work. So that was good. So it's all about giving back, and you learn once again from your background. So, for instance, I'm active in an advisory board with the Boy Scouts. I'm active with several other groups. One thing that we work on that I know Kenneth has been very active in, but he didn't mention, which is fine, is we're now getting ready for our 5th year this spring of what's called the Georgia Legal Food Frenzy, where we ask lawyers around the state to raise money for the now it's 8 certified food banks so that they can have money to buy kids lunch over the summer. About 60% of our school children are eligible for free or reduced lunch. That takes care of the school year, what's happening over the summer. So Bill Bowling, who was the head of the Atlanta Community Food Bank at the time, said, will you please do a program that was started in Virginia? So we now collect, we meaning the lawyers in our state, collect a little over 1.1 million pounds of food, the equivalent during that 2-week period. This year we're hoping to collect a little bit more, which would give us 5 million over that first 5 years. The first year was 482,000 pounds, etc. Then it went, goes up every year. So, with what Kenneth mentioned before, it's all about giving back. So I just wanted to mention a couple things that I pay attention to. There's a gentleman that I'm sure some of you have heard of before, the gentleman who started Aaron Rents, Charlie. So what you probably don't know is before Charlie was the lone white guy on Andy Young's campaign for mayor, Charlie was asked to rent for the civil rights movement the tents and the chairs for the march in Selma. And at the time he went up to, Mr. Loudermilk went up to a bunch of the white business folks and said, what do I do? And they said, you just started your business. How quickly do you want it to close? And Charlie totally disregarded what they told him, and he rented the chairs and the tents to the civil rights movement. So if any of you look at any of those old pictures from Selma, you will find Aaron Rents on the tents and on the chairs, because Charlie, that quote was right, Mr. Loudermilk. If you look at politics, or if you look at society now, it's all about materialism. It's all about what's good for you. You see these stars. I remember, I never get this right, Reese Witherspoon. So, a couple years ago, she's in the cop stopped the car, her husband's driving, the fruitcake gets out of the car and says, do you know who I am? Yeah, moron. So we have an obligation to actually behave. We have an obligation to actually be role models. Not athletes, but people. So I love talking to schools, and they always sit there and say, well, have you met some celebrities? Do you know some celebrities? I say, why don't you think about your teachers? They're the ones who are having you succeed. They're the ones who are responsible for you being successful in life. That guy on the basketball court or the lady on the basketball court is doing nothing to help you. Your teachers are everything for you. So I spend a lot of time there. When I was first elected to the Attorney General's office, they gave me a box of cards, of business cards. And I looked at my assistant, who was Thurber Baker's assistant, and I said, "Why are you giving me one box?" And they said, "Because we bought one box." I said, "Am I being indicted soon?" And they said, "No, but you asked for your email address to be on the box, on your business cards." My email address is still on my cards. It always has been in public service. And it goes to me. It goes to the iPhone and it goes to my assistant. Both of us get it. If you go on the law department's website, there's a contact the Attorney General. Those emails go to me and they go to my assistant. Because that's the way it's supposed to be. We're no better than anyone else. And if you want to reach us, we need to be accessible. So I'm glad to now tell you that when I tell them I'm running out of cards, they buy about 3 boxes at a time, and I still haven't been indicted. But because it's really, really important that you be accessible, it's really important that you actually show that you care, that it's not about you. So when I was chair of Cobb County, it was about our over 5,000 employees. As the Attorney General, it's all about the 350 or so employees I have now. I got about 160 lawyers, staff, and then I got about 250 lawyers that we contract with across the state, mainly for defects, child abuse, child support. Once again, those issues where you need to be in the 159 counties. The quote that I use a lot is from Winston Churchill, which is, "We make a living by what we get, we make a life by what we give." Because it's all about the giving. And for the couple Jews in the room, I then use the term tikkun olam, which is the same thing, to repair the world. That we're here to repair the world. And of course, every religion's got similar language. I mean, the more you're in politics, the more you meet people from all walks of life, the more you understand how similar we are versus how different we are. Some folks love to divide everyone, but you show me a parent who's not interested in improving your child's likelihood of success, and I'll show you, something that doesn't exist. That's what we're all here for, is our children and our grandchildren.